Chaz and AJ in the morning, 99.1 Wplr, 95.9 The Fox, comedian Pat Oates in studio, and Steven J Errante, managing attorney, principal at Lynch, Traub, Keefe, and Errante in New Haven. Great law firm. Let's talk about this story of a guy who's driving down the road. He hits a cow, and then I think he goes to see a doctor named Dr. Hamburger, which is pretty wild. I want to introduce attorney Steven J Errante of Lynch, Traub, Keefe, and Errante in New Haven.
Nice.
So, you know we're good friends with Hugh.
Yes, I know. Good,
Yeah.
Good to see you guys.
That's why I showed up.
Thanks for coming out.
It's like, is it safe?
Hugh vouched for us.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Hugh.
So what happened with this case?
Well, Mr. Lepkowski was a dealer.
Funny.
Kowski. He's a dealer at Foxwoods, and his shift ends at about 3 in the morning. He's driving on 395. A car in front of him veers out of the way, and there is a black beef cow right in front of him, which he hits at 65 miles an hour.
Oh.
You cannot recognize his vehicle, which was a Jeep Cherokee,
Or the cow.
when you see the pictures.
Oh, yeah. Guessing the cow didn't make it.
Yeah.
Cow ended up played in the Mortons, I think, after this.
It's like the cartoons. You hit the cow, it just lands. It's like different cuts of meat, steak, ribs. All
Well, the head went in through the windshield, but
Oh.
fortunately the cow went up over the vehicle and ended up behind the vehicle. Otherwise, Mr. Lepkowski would have been much more seriously injured. He was injured bad enough.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Mr. Lepkowski is stunned, obviously, gets out of the car.
So the head became disconnected from the rest of the cow?
Lots of pieces got disconnected.
Oh, gotcha.
It was a mess.
65 miles an hour.
Yeah, moving violation.
It's like a cheap bob
Blammo.
hit. A horse head in your bed or a cow head in your car.
Right.
Yeah,
By the way.
800-pound cow. And Mr. Lepkowski almost gets hit by an 18-wheeler that zips by, sends debris flying everywhere.
Oh.
He ends up at the hospital, and because you can't make this stuff up,
No.
his treating doctor is Dr. Hamburger, who he treats with.
Was he mad? You killed my family.
Wow. Mr. Lepkowski's treated by Dr. Hamburger, and on the jury, we had a Mrs. Burger to top it off.
I'm like, what's your beef?
It's like, well, this is rare.
What's your beef?
Oh, there was a lot of moolah, and we wanted to move the case along. You know.
Yeah. Nice to meet you.
And the first reporter on this case was a guy named Peter Jankowski for the
gosh.
Hearst Publishing, who
wild.
reported on it.
Wow.
Reported on the case.
Wow.
So it was an interesting case, to say the least. Mr. Lepkowski did very well with the jury. He got $1.3 million.
Nice.
So
You think was fair? That's a good number?
I do. I think it was fair for what he's gone through and what he continues to go through,
So
certainly.
no one really talks about this, but the 1.3, when you get 1.3, some of that's medical bills, right?
Some of it's medical bills. Attorneys have to get paid also.
Right.
So, he's not going to dent that much money.
What do you get? Free dinner? Now, do you keep the money or you farm it out?
Well,
You know, there was one more.
There's probably a few more.
Okay.
well, yeah, you can't beat the dealer.
Right.
So that was Mr. Lepkowski's case. And obviously it's funny because of the names, but things tend to happen in trends. And
Who got sued? The owner of the farm?
the owner of the cows, who had purchased them the day before, and let them. We had cow experts from Colorado and Texas testify in the case, and the point of controversy was whether or not, when you buy cows, you have to put them in these temporary pens that are made of steel, and the cows cannot get out. I didn't know this growing up in New York City, but cows can actually jump pretty high. This cow was able to jump over a 4-foot fence.
Wow.
If they get a running start. So you put them in small pens, you feed them, and the anxiousness or anxiety of being moved from place to place disappears, and the fence is more of a deterrent. But unfortunately, these cows were just let out the day they were purchased, and one of them went berserk and jumped over the fence near 395. They chased it for a couple of hours, but then it got dark. The cow was black. They couldn't catch it.
Right.
And next thing we know, it's on
And
395.
they just let it go.
And they let it go. Yeah.
There's a famous story, the one that went over the moon. Remember that time? Yeah.
So.
Wow. Does your this Lepkowski have any permanent damage?
He does. He's got a permanent injury to his hand, and he's a dealer, so that's a problem.
Yeah.
He's got a permanent injury to his back and his neck, more his neck than his back, but, he's had a number of injections, and he still wakes up with bad dreams. He has PTSD, and He was 71 when it happened. He's 76 and still working.
So I imagine he's a vegetarian by now, right? Sees a steak. No! Porterhouse!
Yeah.
Bad! Wow.
That is nuts. Cow experts.
Wow.
Cow experts on what you do with cows when you buy them.
Yeah, I had no. Who knew?
Experts. Yeah. I had a horse that didn't like to travel, and we brought her up to our property, and same thing. We put her in a temporary fence, but we gave her a lot of room.
Yeah.
And she just, as soon as she got in there, she just started running the length of the fence.
Oh, measuring it out?
Yeah, she was like getting her feel for like how fast do I have to go to get over this.
Then she had that pole vault.
And then she started running, and I felt like I was in Braveheart. You know, you feel the ground moving.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, this is,
Not good.
she's not going to stop this time.
Not
She's
good.
going for it. And,
Yeah.
you know, to see a 1,000-pound animal up in the air and then come down, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Show of power and strength.
Not underneath it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Incredible.
Wow.
I didn't think a cow could do that.
I
at
had
all.
no idea.
It's one thing to see a horse, but can you imagine a cow jumping a fence?
It went
milkshakes.
through a 4-foot-high fence that was electrified and had barbed wire on it. And
Wow.
it just went over it, took it down, and out it went.
So his deal must have been, I did everything I could. I had the fence, I had the electric, I had the... what am I
Everybody
supposed to
agreed
do?
the fence was appropriate, but it wasn't appropriate until the cow was settled in on the new property, and that became the bone of
Yeah,
contention.
it's probably wondering where the hell am I?
Yeah,
Started
so they didn't do all the
wandering.
right things in
Yeah.
the beginning.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Poor cow.
All right, so we have a couple of other really interesting stories here. There was a doctor who was sued for impregnating his patients.
Whoops.
Also, what I want to do, and there's another twist to this one too.
Okay.
But also, if you want to play a game, what's it worth? If you want to call in, like if you had an injury or something,
Oh,
and see if
cool.
we can guess what you got. 203-882-9757. Chaz and AJ in the morning. 99.1 PLR, 95.9 The Fox. Steven, you handle the malpractice and the personal injury kind of part of it.
I do.
All right, then we got this case here who a doctor was sued for impregnating his patients. Was this something that you handled?
It was. I was one of quite a few attorneys in this case. He allegedly used, at least that's what I was defending this case, which is unusual. Usually I'm representing the victim.
Yeah.
But alleged was that he had used his own sperm. But interestingly, if you do something intentionally, it's not covered by insurance. So everyone, including the plaintiff in this case, was happy to know that the doctor had an explanation as to how this accidentally happened. And
How many times did it accidentally happen?
well, we only know of one for sure, but I have a feeling the insurance company was very concerned about whether it had happened other times because they were in a rush to get this case settled a long time. This case goes back about 10 or 15 years, but number of attorneys involved. It became obvious when they were twins, blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls were born, and the mother was dark hair and dark eyes, and the father was African-American. So there was a suspicion that something had not gone right here with the process.
What kind of doctor was he?
He was an OBGYN.
Oh.
So was he assisting in trying to get the families pregnant?
Yes, he was also he was a fertility doctor,
Gotcha.
and so that
Okay.
was the plan. And
I'd be like, that's weird if he's a dentist.
He's a proctologist, even worse.
This is really like, I don't know.
well, then he only missed by a little. So
Right. Wrong entrance. Sorry.
So
Nice.
there was a lot of conflict among the doctor, his partners, but nobody was making any moves until the case was resolved. And in the group of attorneys, because you can't make this stuff up, you'd go along. So I'm Steve Errante, I'm Joe Smith, and of course one of the attorneys had to be named Penny Seaman. In the case, a very good lawyer, but of
Cost
course
more
she-
than that.
Back in my day.
Wow.
You can't make this up.
No, you cannot. This is awesome.
if you put it in a book, they wouldn't believe it.
Right.
They wouldn't.
But I'm sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no. So you guys settled this in quickly because you thought, well, the longer this hangs around, the more likely there'll be other problems.
I think that was the thinking of the insurance company. I represented the doctor personally, so
yeah.
But that was the tenor of what was going on.
And was there a number, or did he have to give up practicing?
So he gave up fertility practicing, but he did not give up his license. We had a hearing regarding that. It was also interesting as to who the real plaintiff was, who's the victim here. The children were born, so they were plaintiffs, but what was their complaint? That they were born? That didn't seem to be terribly convincing.
Yeah.
The wife kind of got what she wanted. She wanted biracial children. She got the children of a doctor. Maybe her parents were a little happier about that, but the best plaintiff I really thought was the husband/father. But the problem with that is if he doesn't adopt the children, he has no connection to the children, and he could take the money and just take off. And if I were writing the book, I would have said that her and the doctor, planned this all, and they would take the money and they'd go to some island somewhere with the kids.
Right.
But I don't think that's what happened.
And when you say an island, that suggests like there was a lot of money.
Yeah, there was a lot of money.
Okay, let's go to an island. Yeah,
yeah. If you're going to an island,
well, Long Island.
That's true.
Rhode Island, maybe.
Staten Island.
Right.
Yeah,
They were going to Staten Island.
That's true.
Staten
Maybe
Island,
it's
right?
not
Exactly
that.
Right.
What about some other cases you can? So that one's pretty. That's pretty wild. That almost sounds like a Netflix special. Yeah. Some of these cases you're doing sound like they could be. Small documentaries.
We actually are investigating a case now where we know of at least 23 people who were impregnated by a doctor.
Wow.
Who's very old and very retired now, and so we're investigating that at the moment.
This seems to happen. Like this isn't as rare as you'd want it to be.
I think when this all happened 25, 30 years ago, nobody was worried about DNA or 23andMe or Ancestry.com.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden, these things are coming out of the closet. And
I know you can't speak to all of them, but do you think the doctor was doing it because he's a weirdo, or do you think he was just doing it for efficiency? Like this is easier.
Job security.
I know. This stuff works.
Yeah, right. I got a friend, a pediatrician,
and I don't mean to say, I'm not trying to sound insensitive. I'm just wondering, like, is it because the guy's a nut, or is it because it's?
I probably there's an element of both because I think you have to be a little nutty to do that. But in this case we're investigating, the MO simply was I have a Yale resident, just happens to be here. I'll be back in 20 minutes with a fresh sample, and we can use it. And at least one or two of the women, because most of these people are still in the New Haven area, when she goes out on a date, she has to worry about whether or not she's dating a half brother. And in fact, two of the 4 boys, I think they're all boys, 2 pairs were in classes together and didn't know they were half brothers until years later.
That's wild.
Huh.
Oh, this is a Netflix documentary.
Big time, yeah.
Was his name Dr. Huxtable?
That is wild.
He didn't even have to use drugs. Everybody was voluntary.
Where are you supposed to go? Like, how was that supposed to happen? You go to just a bank and, like, no one knows.
So, there is a, if it's done legitimately, there is a bank and there's an anonymous donor, and the process has gotten more complex now compared to what it was like in the 80s, where it was pretty much the Wild West and people just went to see doctors, to get pregnant. Now,
and I never
much more
thought
supervised.
there's not the DNA part of it. Like we weren't testing for DNA. You don't know if you're getting samples from a cousin or a relative or something. You have no idea.
No idea.
What were those? What does it cost for those samples? I'm guessing they're like really expensive.
Well, the donors got about $100 a shot.
Really?
And
but the company between the donor and the receiver probably gets a lot of money.
And that it's whatever the traffic will bear. There are limits now on how many donations you can make to prevent this problem from happening.
$100 found side hustle. I'll use a couple hundred.
We have attorney Steven J Errante of Lynch, Traub, Keefe and Errante Law Firm in New Haven, and talking about personal injury suits. You have any other weird suits?
Well, it's you can take this as a sample. 49-year-old man, overweight, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, wakes up in the middle of the night with chest pain, drives himself to the hospital. What do you think he's having?
Heart attack.
Yeah. So he goes to the emergency room. They do an EKG, which is normal. They do a troponin test, which is a blood enzyme. When there's a heart attack and there's damage to the heart tissue, this enzyme shows up in the blood. But you have to do the test 4 hours apart because it takes some time for that to happen. So he goes to the hospital at about 3 a.m. They run these tests. They tell him, probably indigestion, but see your cardiologist on Monday morning. This was a Saturday. He leaves and he dies in the parking lot. Drives about 500 feet of a heart attack. And they try to resuscitate him, but with no success. The emergency room doctor, Dr. Doolittle.
Really?
Yeah.
If he could talk to the animals.
There's a theme with these cases, I'm hearing.
He lived up to his name.
Yeah, you want to do, doctor does a lot.
Oh, God.
Dr. Do Too Little.
Right, way too little. Yeah.
Wow. Horribly sad story. But also, like, when this comes across your desk, you're like, oh, this is going to be great.
Yeah, his first name was Hugh. Hugh Doolittle.
Hugh Doolittle. Dr. Doolittle.
Wow.
So that's
Jeez.
Go ahead.
Was that your case?
Yes.
That was your case.
Yep.
Wow, these cases, you're like a magnet for this stuff.
Seriously.
You can't make this
I guess if you do 1 million of them over a career, you're going to have a couple like this.
Oh yeah. There's more than a couple. Some of them are sad. Some of them are just interesting.
Right.
Obviously, since this show is not a serious show, we're trying to find the humorous
we're keeping
ones.
it fun. Yeah.
Avoid Dr. Death.
Was there a number on this one?
There was, but I can't disclose it. It's confidential.
Gotcha.
Okay, gotcha. Can we play a game of how what's it worth? And then you could give us a couple of examples, then we'll all try to guess.
All right. And this case, I don't have an answer, so I'm curious to see what
you
guys say.
Okay,
and
what is it worth?
Right.
And you can call in, too. If you have something, you're like, hey, I lost my finger at work. What's that worth? We'll all give it a number. Cool. All right?
I want that
203-882-9757. We have a personal injury specialist in here, attorney Steven J Errante with Lynch, Traub, Keefe, and Errante. And we're going to play a game. It's called What's It Worth? Okay, so he'll give us a case. We'll tell him what we think it's worth. Or you can call in your past or present case, or maybe you're planning on falling.
Right.
By accident.
Yeah, what piece is worth the most?
1-877-764-2535. All right, let's start with one of your cases, and we'll tell you what we think it's worth.
Okay, here's the case. Young man, about 25, is working, takes up with a young lady about the same age at work. Everything seems fine. They're sort of living together. She spends a couple of nights home with her parents until the phone rings one day. He picks up her phone, and it's her fiancé on the phone.
Oops.
You can imagine how that went. Who are you?
Yep.
Who are you? He says, get out of here. She swears that, he's the one for her, that they had rented an apartment together. She couldn't get out of the lease, etc. He says, break up the engagement. Call me back when that's done. About a month later, she calls back and says, I've broken off the engagement. He takes her back. Everything's fine again. They are planning on getting married. She gets pregnant. He goes to the first OBGYN appointment. And the date of conception is in that 1 month period they weren't together.
Oops.
So he's about to say, get out of here. She says, no, DNA testing. I'm positive it's yours. They're wrong about the conception date. They go for DNA testing. Turns out 100% he is not the father.
Ding, ding, ding.
So now he's had it. She still insists that, no, they're wrong. There's a record of her calling the DNA company and asking him to retest. They don't retest. They look at what they did, and their protocol was followed, so they stick with their results. She's still upset, but not much she can do about it. He goes on. Life goes on. He takes up with a new woman, has a child with her. I think she was pregnant when he gets a letter and a phone call from the DNA company. Oops, we made a mistake.
Oh, jeez.
99.998%, it is your child. He's, of course.
If I'm this guy, I want more proof now.
Yeah, right.
They
yeah.
they do they go to an independent lab, do a third test, which confirms that he's the father. So there's no question that he's the father, and even the company that screwed up the test at this point admits they screwed up the test. So he's upset because he missed this child, his first child, being born, walking, talking. She's still upset with him, so he has to fight to get his rights back, get his name on the birth certificate, get joint custody, etc. He spends a fortune in attorney's fees.
His whole life unraveled differently because of this test.
The trajectory of his life is different. He's with a woman that he would have preferred to have been with the first woman. His whole life has changed, and now the second woman is upset with him because he's got a family that he's trying to meld together that she had no part of and didn't want any part of.
Right.
So we have an expert from Yale who's going to talk about the difference, and the father, will testify as to the difference in his relationship with the daughter that he didn't see for the first 2 years of his life compared to his daughters that he saw since birth. And so the question becomes, that case will be tried later this year. What's that worth? What would you give this gentleman for what he's had to go through and how his life has changed?
Now, do you have a number in your mind yet? And how do you come up with a number? You start breaking down. All right, here's the costs. Here's the actual injuries, and then how do you put a value on this? Now, do you have to look at how much this guy makes to say his life is generally worth like around this much, and then how do you put a value on that?
I have to say this case is very difficult to value. Most other cases, there are similar cases that you can compare to. This is not a case where there's a lot of samples out there, and different parts of the country value cases differently. And when you try a case like this, depends on how the witnesses look. We know what they look like from depositions we've taken, but sometimes they may appear good or bad in a deposition, and at trial, they're just the opposite. So your value changes as the case goes along. And part of what we do is actually take people, give them facts in the case, and ask for their opinion, trying to get a representative sample of what our jury might look like and what they might think. And so we've taken a number of samples, so I sort of have a range, but we haven't taken enough samples that I feel comfortable with the range, and so that's why I present the case to you. Interesting that you look at the people involved and how they look when they're being asked questions and how they just look in general, because that's how society's just like, if you look good, you're basically, we judge you as you're probably a good person. Right. If you look mean, you're probably a mean person. It's interesting. I think the plaintiff, the father, has done all the right things. He looks good. I think will make a good witness. He did in his deposition. He even looked good in a mediation that was done in the case. And who's on the hook? The DNA company? So they have a tremendous amount of money, right? They do. It's actually an international company. Is $10 million too small to start? No. Okay. That would be my number. That's the number that came to me, $10 million. Yeah. And I even think that's too low. Right. Because you're going to have to split that up into costs, trial costs, attorney fees. True. Like, it's still not enough. Like, his whole life. Not even just him. The fractured kids, pieces of the family. Right. There's another kid. All those birthday gifts you have to get now. Yeah, there's got to be some responses. So the company had the opportunity to fix it. Yeah. Right. That's like, companies make mistakes, but then they were called out on it and they made it again. Yep. Here's my question. What would it have cost them at that moment when they could have just rerun the test instead of just being like, we did it right? Even if they decided to charge the woman and my client, it would have been, I think, less than $500. Ugh. Yeah. Just run it again. Yeah. I mean, money isn't going to fix this. No. But, yeah, these kids got to be taken care of. Yep. This is why you screwed the whole guy. You screwed the guy. You messed up everything. This is why you take the test, so we know what to do. Right. Plus, now, a good settlement, the one he's with right now, will be cool with it. It's like, okay, at least we got all this money now. No, I think you send her packing. Okay. It's like, I'm blending this family. Well, you got to write a check first. You got to cut her a check and say, send her packing. We got to go. I'm thinking $13 million. We didn't even get to our calls, and
Thank you for holding. Sorry, we're not going to get to you guys.
Right.
I appreciate you holding.
Injured again.
So we got to.
Now you hurt my feelings.
Now we're going to be sued. What was your? Are we anywhere near with 10? Anywhere near reality or no?
Yeah, I think you're in the ballpark. I think anywhere from 5 to 20 is kind of the range.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Huh.
Wow, what a story. I'll remember that one forever. Attorney Steven J Errante with Lynch, Traub, Keefe, and Errante in New Haven's in studio. We're talking about personal injury, and we're talking about this DNA mix-up, this whole deal. I still have questions about this case. It's so fascinating.
Bizarre.
And horrible at the same time. But, Senator Blumenthal is marching at a parade over the weekend. Did you hear about this?
I did.
Yeah. All right, so he's marching in a parade, and an assistant of another elected official steps on the back of his foot or whatever that falls on him. He falls, breaks a femur. Now, he's probably not going to sue. But if let's say this happens to somebody, what do you think something like that's worth?
Well, it's not a great case, but the case would be against the person who stepped on him or fell into him. You would hope they had homeowners coverage, because if they don't have homeowners coverage, it's almost futile to bring the claim because it'll be very difficult to collect any real money on the case. If they had homeowners coverage, your homeowners coverage doesn't just cover accidents at home. It also covers accidents that are outside the home. And
that's wild.
And it would cover this if you didn't tie your shoelaces and you tripped over your own shoelaces accidentally. It would be covered. But you can see where the defense of that case would make it difficult. So the case wouldn't have the same value as if he broke his leg when he was sitting at a red light and a Coca-Cola truck ran into him. The values would be vastly different.
Cha-ching.
And you only say Coca-Cola because here's a company with big money.
Lots of money. Right.
Recognized company.
Recognized, big money.
Right. So you can't sue the city because the street was so hard. The nun said don't fall on it.
No, the city gets immunity, and unless they're 100% at fault for a fall, they don't have to pay. So cities are pretty well protected.
Like a sinkhole, all of a sudden, boom.
Oh, that's wild.
Oh. All right, there goes that idea.
All right, what if you're at work and you're running a machine and you lose a finger?
So that's covered by workman's comp. The thing you might look at is whether or not there was a defect in the machine, because that would be a products liability case. Workman's comp is very regimented. There's a book with a list, and every body part is worth so many weeks of compensation.
Really?
So.
But what if your finger's disfigured, for example, for the rest of your life?
Same thing.
Damn it, really?
You get a scarring award.
Damn it.
You get so many weeks for a finger.
Yeah, this finger went through a printing press. Now it makes a hard left at the top, and there's like a chunk missing. And I got this big scar.
And since it's your middle finger, you use it a lot, apparently. So.
Well, I did. I did when we went to court.
You know AJ, don't you?
You are correct, sir.
Yeah, it's a hard finger. Like E.T.
But the products liability case, if the machine was supposed to have a safety that wasn't operating, then you might be able to sue the manufacturer of the machine. And then there's no set value. Then it's what's fair, just, and reasonable.
Damn.
And that depends on the person and what they do for a living and so forth.
I heard the story, local baseball game, guy falls down the stairs. Yeah, everyone's drinking.
Yeah, of course.
Falls down the stairs on the what do you call them?
The risers, the grandstand.
Yeah, exactly.
The stands.
Bleachers. Like the stadium steps.
Bleachers.
Thank
Bleachers.
you. I knew it was a word in there somewhere.
Somebody runs over and picks him up.
Ooh.
And apparently that made it really bad.
Not supposed to touch someone.
You pull the wrong part when it's injured. Yeah, that's
they say lay still.
Yeah.
Person became paraplegic.
Oh my goodness.
What's the deal there? Can you sue anyone?
Well, if you would hope the person was a medical person who had lots of insurance coverage and should know better. If it's the average Joe, that becomes a problem. Again, homeowners theoretically would cover that, but you'd have to prove that he was negligent, that he should have known better, and that he wasn't just trying to help. You can see how that would be a defensible case, but technically you can make a case out of that, and a jury might feel that that's such common knowledge that if somebody falls, you just tell them to be still, that picking him up was negligent and that he should have known or she should have known better, and they could award money based on that.
Damn.
What about you have a sidewalk in front of your house and it snows and you don't shovel it? Someone slips and falls. Is that your responsibility or is it the town's?
Most towns have a regulation that shifts the responsibility from the town to the homeowner or property owner.
Yeah.
And you have a reasonable amount of time to shovel, salt, and so forth. And if you don't do that and somebody falls, it's on the homeowner.
Yeah, it's my town. They're full of shift.
Dave in West Haven.
This is actually Dave in Westport.
Okay. Hey, Dave.
We knew that.
So, anyways, I got slammed by a city bus, and I had called the lawyer because the city bus never hit the brakes. They came into my lane. I had witnesses and camera video on the bus and everything. I called the lawyer, and I was told flat out, drop the case. I'm not going to win. So,
why wouldn't you win?
I don't understand. That's why I'm asked. I wanted to get the lawyer's opinion of whether or not I should have pursued it, because when I called the lawyer, they said, you're not going to win. It's a city bus. And I said, but I got witnesses. I got video. There's video on the bus.
Right, they have insurance?
What's that?
There's an exception for motor vehicle accidents, so you should have pursued the case. That case is a winnable case.
All right. I just wanted to get an opinion.
How long ago did it happen?
Oh, it's been too long to pursue. I think it's probably been 6 years.
Yeah.
6 years?
Way too long. Statute's 2 years.
Damn.
Yeah.
All right, go do it again.
All right.
Well, this is...
Go find that bus. All right, guys. Thanks.
All right. What do you think? Well,
bad,
we don't
right?
know the extent of injuries and all that stuff, but so you think that was... why would someone say you don't have anything here?
I don't have any idea.
You
Why
weren't a
would
very
say
good
that?
lawyer,
Imagine if he called the town attorney.
right?
Like, yeah, you have nothing here.
I know, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. Yeah, great, yeah. Now you want a shock.
Yeah. Pat, have you ever been injured? And
yeah,
had
but
to
I
go
did it
for-
to myself, so
oh, okay.
I was in a bad
You
accident,
can't
but
sue.
I drove myself into a guardrail and broke my heel.
Oh,
I
okay.
couldn't sue anybody, but maybe the bar for not shutting me down. That's about it.
Right. That's a whole nother deal now, too, right?
Oh, it is the dram shop action, but that's really directed at if you would hurt somebody else.
Right.
So not if
Without
you hurt
doubt,
yourself. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right, I think we have one more. Anthony and Aunt Sonia.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Hey, good, thanks. What's your question?
Good, thank you. I've been listening to you guys for a long time. Yeah,
Thank
quick question for the attorney. I was in a motorcycle accident last year, and when the paramedics arrived to the scene, they treated the other injured party. And since I was involved in the accident as well, they didn't even. They knew I was involved in the accident, but they never came over to paramedics, firefighters. Nobody ever came over to me to evaluate me. You know, they evaluated the guy that was injured more than I was, and I told her I was involved in the accident as well. And when they pushed everybody to the side, they took care of him, put him in the ambulance, and then they left. And the state police came over and says, "Oh, Anthony, how'd you make out with the paramedics?" So they never even came over to me. So I want to know, is there any negligence in regards to paramedics? Like, for instance, there's an accident. Okay, you two treat that guy. You two go treat the other guy. See how many parties were involved.
Yeah, so you weren't treated. Is there any negligence is the question.
So there probably was negligence in not checking you, but that doesn't make a case. You have to show that there was negligence and their failure, in this case to examine you, caused you some additional damage that you would not have otherwise had they checked you.
You two treat that guy. You two go
Hey,
treat the other.
Now he's listening to
That's
the
how
radio.
he sounds.
All right, Anthony. Thank you.
Hey, thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
All right. One more, then we got some parade audio. It is not the moment the senator fell.
No.
Roger,
Yes.
you're on.
Okay. My son was in a motorcycle accident.
Sorry to hear that.
Guy burned a red light. He had foot injuries. Attorneys went after him, but he had minimum coverage. Once that was reached, that was about all the attorneys said they could get. Now, I've been listening. So could they also have gone after the guy's homeowners?
They could not have gone after his homeowners. You'd have a choice of taking the insurance coverage if it was the minimum insurance coverage. It was $25,000. And then you could either accept that or refuse to accept that, get a judgment against them for a higher amount. The insurance company would pay the $25,000 because that's contractually all they're obligated to pay. And then you could garnish his wages or look for assets to make up the difference between the $25,000 that the insurance company paid and whatever the judge or jury awarded you for the motorcycle accident or your son.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thanks. So if you get into an accident with someone, they don't have any car insurance, but they own a house, like let's just say they have a mortgage and they own most of the house or whatever. Can you attach that?
You can. I've actually had a couple of cases, although both cases, unfortunately, involved a child who had been killed, and the parents were not happy with the coverage, even though it was way more than $25,000. But there's no value for the life of a child. And
I think the basic in Connecticut is like 300 or 5 somewhere around there.
Well, the minimum's 25,000. A lot of people have 100. Some people have 300,000, and then some people have 300,000 plus an umbrella on top of that, usually for at least $1 million. But the parents in both these cases wanted to inflict some pain and suffering on the person who had killed their child, and they insisted that a second mortgage be taken out and that they pay some additional money above and beyond the insurance coverage.
So you can do that above and beyond the insurance. Yeah. Wow. Well, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, my pleasure.
We got to have you
guys.
back.
Definitely.
Steven J Errante, managing partner, principal, Lynch, Traub, Keefe, and Errante.